The unseen artist. The final notes of the orchestra faded as the crimson curtain descended on the Waldorf Theater's latest triumph. While thunderous applause erupted from the audience, Prisha Mehta was already working in the wings, gathering discarded costumes with practiced efficiency. At 26, she moved through the backstage chaos like a ghost, present but unseen, essential yet overlooked. Careful with that. She called softly to an assistant handling a delicate Victorian gown. Her fingers brushed over the intricate beadwork she'd spent 3 nights perfecting. No one in the audience would notice the tiny roses she'd stitched into the cuffs, a secret signature visible only to those who knew where to look. Another standing ovation. Prisha. Director Thomas Blackwood's booming voice carried over the bustling crew. Those costumes made the entire second act. I don't know how you do it. Prisha offered a quick smile before ducking her head. Just doing my job. You do 10 jobs, and better than most people do 1, Thomas replied. But Prisha had already slipped away, retreating to her small workshop in the theater's basement. The room was her sanctuary. Fabric bolts stacked against walls, sketches pinned haphazardly across corkboards, and a worn leather chair inherited from the theater's previous costume designer. Here, surrounded by the tools of her craft, Prisha didn't need to hide. Here, she could create worlds without having to face them. She sat at her workstation and pulled out a sketchbook from her drawer. Inside were designs far beyond the scope of the Waldorf's productions. Avant-garde pieces that challenged convention. Costumes that told stories on their own. She'd been working on this collection for years, though she couldn't imagine showing it to anyone. You should submit these, her predecessor had once urged after discovering the sketchbook. The Manette Foundation grant was made for talent like yours. But Prisha had declined. 7 years ago, she'd tried stepping into the spotlight at a prestigious design institute. The memory still stung. The dismissive glances. The whispered comments about the scholarship girl with her provincial ideas. The public critique that left her designs in tatters and her confidence shattered. Miss Mehta? A stagehand appeared at her door. We need you upstairs. Olivia's dress split right before the final bow. Sighing, Prisha grabbed her emergency kit. Moments later, she was kneeling beside the theater's lead actress, needle flashing in and out of expensive silk. Honestly, I don't know why they don't just put your name on the marquee, Olivia said, watching Prisha's hands work magic. None of us would look half as good without you. Prisha kept her eyes on her stitches. The audience comes to see you, not the person who makes the costumes. That's because they don't know better, Olivia replied. When the repair was complete, Prisha melted back into the shadows of the theater. As cast members celebrated another successful performance, she collected fallen sequins and stray threads, listening to their laughter and stories without participating. Later that night, after everyone had gone, Prisha walked the empty stage. In the dim ghost light, she imagined what it might feel like to stand in the spotlight rather than create it for others. She ran her hand along the velvet curtain, feeling its weight and history. Someday, she whispered to the empty theater seats, a promise so quiet even she barely heard it. Unknown to Prisha, the Waldorf's financial troubles had reached a critical point. Thomas had been meeting with potential investors for months, and tomorrow, Rohan Kapoor, the brilliant founder of Akar Technologies and a renowned arts patron, would be touring the theater. As Prisha switched off the lights and locked the stage door behind her, she had no way of knowing that her carefully constructed world of shadows was about to be illuminated by someone who would see what she had spent years hiding, not just her talent, but herself. Golden glimpses, the Waldorf Theater buzzed with unusual energy that Wednesday morning. Stagehands hurriedly cleared debris, lighting technicians adjusted fixtures, and Thomas Blackwood paced the lobby, checking his watch every 30 seconds. He's here, Thomas announced, straightening his tie as a sleek black car pulled up outside. Prisha, arms full of costume sketches for the upcoming production of The Tempest, barely registered the commotion until Thomas beckoned her urgently. Prisha, I need you to present the costume department. Our potential savior has arrived. Before she could protest, the theater doors swung open and Rohan Kapoor strode in. At 34, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had built an empire from nothing. His tailored suit couldn't quite disguise the creative spirit beneath the businessman exterior, evidenced by unconventional cufflinks shaped like vintage typewriter, keys in the notebook perpetually tucked in his pocket. Mr. Kapoor, welcome to the Waldorf, Thomas effused. We're honored you're considering us for your arts initiative. Rohan's warm smile transformed his serious face. Please, it's Rohan and the honor is mine. This theater is legendary. As Thomas led the small entourage through the theater, Prisha tried to make herself invisible, edging toward the workshop stairs. She nearly succeeded until Thomas called out, "And this is Prisha Mehta, our costume design genius, the soul of our productions truly." Reluctantly, Prisha turned. She expected the cursory handshake and dismissive nod she typically received from patrons, those who saw costumes as mere decoration rather than storytelling elements. Instead, Rohan stepped forward with genuine interest. The costumes from last month's Macbeth were extraordinary. That modernist take on the witches, otherworldly yet somehow familiar. Was that your concept? Prisha blinked in surprise. Few noticed such details, let alone attributed them correctly. Yes, I wanted them to feel like they existed between worlds. It worked brilliantly. The transparent layers created this illusion that they were partially in our dimension and partially elsewhere. His eyes lingered on the sketches in her arms. Is that for the next production? Before she could answer, Thomas interjected about budget concerns, steering Rohan toward the administrative offices. But as the group moved away, Rohan glanced back at Prisha with undisguised curiosity. Later that afternoon, when the theater should have been empty, Prisha heard footsteps approaching her workshop. She looked up to find Rohan Kapoor standing in her doorway without his entourage. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said. "I told Thomas I'd forgotten my phone in the theater, but really I wanted to see where the magic happens." Prisha hastily covered her personal sketchbook. "It's hardly magic, Mr. Kapoor, just fabric and thread. Rohan, please." He remained at the threshold, respecting her space. "And we both know it's much more than that, may I?" He gestured toward the workshop. Something in his genuine interest made her nod. As he wandered around examining her organized chaos with reverence rather than judgment, Prisha found herself relaxing slightly. "These are from past productions?" he asked, pointing to a wall of photographs. "Yes. I keep a visual record of everything we create here." He studied each image carefully. "You don't appear in any of these. I'm not the one on stage, but you're essential to what happens there." He paused at a particularly elaborate costume. "This is museum-quality work, you know," Prisha shrugged. "It served its purpose for the production." Rohan turned to face her fully. "Do you ever create pieces that aren't for specific shows? Just for yourself?" The question struck uncomfortably close to her secret collection. "Sometimes, when I have time." His eyes caught the edge of her hidden sketchbook. Rather than press, he simply nodded. Creative minds rarely stop creating, do they? Even when no one's watching. For the next half hour, they discussed theater history, fabric techniques, and the challenges of translating directors' visions into wearable art. Prisha found herself forgetting who he was, engaging passionately about costume symbolism until she suddenly caught herself. "I'm sorry," she said, embarrassed. "You probably have important meetings to get to." "This is important," Rohan replied simply. "Understanding the heart of this theater matters more than balance sheets." As he prepared to leave, he noticed a small tear in his jacket sleeve. "Hazard of rushing between meetings," he explained. Without thinking, Prisha gestured for him to hand her the jacket. He watched in fascination as she made a nearly invisible repair in minutes. "There," she said, returning it. "Good as new." "Better than new," he corrected, examining her work. "Thank you, Prisha." The way he said her name, like it was something significant, made her look up and meet his eyes directly for the first time. The genuine appreciation she saw there caught her off guard. "I have a feeling I'll be spending much more time at the Waldorf," Rohan said, putting his jacket back on. "There's clearly more here than meets the eye." After he left, Prisha sat motionless at her workbench. For years, she'd perfected the art of blending into backgrounds, of making others shine while remaining invisible. Yet for those brief moments under Rohan Kapoor's attentive gaze, she'd felt something long forgotten, the sensation of being truly seen. She opened her private sketchbook again, and for the first time in years found herself drawing with a strange new energy, as if someone had opened a window in a room too long kept dark. Threads of Trust 3. Weeks after Rohan's initial visit, the Waldorf Theater had transformed. Fresh paint brightened the lobby. Repairs long postponed were underway, and a palpable optimism had replaced the staff's former resignation. Thomas announced that Acar Technologies had committed to a substantial 5-year patronage, ensuring the theater's immediate survival. What Thomas didn't mention was how frequently Rohan himself appeared, often without notice, slipping into the theater during rehearsals or technical runs. Each time he found his way to Prisha's workshop under increasingly transparent pretexts. "I'm considering funding a special exhibition of theatrical costumes," he explained on his 3rd visit, perching on a stool while Prisha hand-stitched delicate lace onto a collar. "I'd value your professional opinion." Prisha kept her eyes on her work. "There are more qualified consultants than me." "I doubt that," Rohan replied, watching her fingers create tiny, perfect stitches. "Besides, they wouldn't tell me the truth about whether it's a foolish idea." A small smile escaped her. "And you think I would?" "I know you would." His certainty surprised her. "You don't seem inclined toward flattery." That afternoon, they discussed exhibition concepts until the conversation drifted to their personal histories. Rohan described growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Mumbai, his parents' sacrifices for his education, and the technology scholarship that changed his life. "Everyone sees the success," he said, tracing a pattern on her workbench. "They don't see the years of failure that preceded it." Prisha nodded, understanding more than she admitted. As weeks passed, these conversations became a ritual neither acknowledged but both anticipated. Between fittings and production meetings, they carved out moments where the outside world receded. On a rainy Thursday in April, Prisha arrived at the theater to find a package waiting. Archival quality drawing materials and imported fabric samples with a simple note. "For your personal collection. R." That evening, when he appeared at her door, she finally showed him her private sketchbook. "These are revolutionary," he said quietly, turning pages with careful hands. "They tell stories on their own." He looked up at her. "Why haven't you submitted these anywhere?" The old pain surfaced. "I did once," sensing her hesitation. Rohan waited patiently as she described her scholarship to the prestigious Elliott Design Institute, where her background and unconventional approaches had made her an outsider. "They said my work lacked refinement," she recalled, the memory still sharp, "that my aesthetic was too ethnic, too emotional, not commercial enough." She closed the sketchbook. "They were probably right." "They were demonstrably wrong," Rohan countered, surprising her with his vehemence. "This is visionary work." His certainty both comforted and frightened her. "It's easier to create when no one's watching," she said. "No expectations, no disappointment, and no recognition," he added gently. "No chance to influence others." The conversation lingered with Prisha for days afterward. While fitting Olivia for her Prospero costume, Thomas had boldly cast a woman in the traditionally male role. Prisha found herself unusually distracted. "Earth to Prisha," Olivia teased. "You've pinned the same sleeve 3 times." "Sorry," Prisha mumbled. Olivia studied her with actress's intuition. "It wouldn't happen to involve our handsome new patron, would it? He watches you, you know. Not in a creepy way, more like he's trying to solve a fascinating puzzle." Prisha's cheeks warmed. "He's just interested in the theater. Darling, he's here even when there's nothing scheduled. And he always finds his way downstairs." Olivia softened her teasing. "It's nice to see someone appreciate what you do. What you could do." The following Sunday, Prisha received a text from an unknown number. "The Museum of Modern Design has an exhibition closing today. Would you accompany me?" "Rohan," she stared at her phone, heart racing. This wasn't a theater meeting or a casual workshop conversation. This was something else entirely. 3 hours later, they walked through the exhibition, discussing each piece. With Rohan, Prisha found herself speaking freely about design theory and artistic influences, subjects she'd kept to herself for years. "You should be teaching this," he observed as she deconstructed a particularly complex installation. "I'm not qualified," she deflected automatically. "Stop that," he said, surprising her. His voice was gentle but firm. "Stop diminishing yourself. It's the only thing about you I find frustrating." The statement hung between them, honest and unadorned. Instead of apologizing, Rohan simply waited, giving her space to absorb his words. After the museum, they walked to a small restaurant where the owner greeted Rohan by name despite his obvious wealth. Over dinner, Prisha learned how he spent weekends volunteering at the community center where his mother had once taught, and how he'd created a scholarship program for first-generation tech students. Success means little if it doesn't create opportunities for others, he explained. Watching him interact with the restaurant staff, remembering names, asking about families, Prisha realized he moved through his privileged world with conscious awareness of his responsibility within it. As they parted that evening, Rohan handed her an envelope. The Monet Foundation deadline is Friday. Application materials are inside. Prisha stiffened. You had no right. I didn't submit anything, he clarified quickly. I wouldn't, but I'm asking you to consider it. His eyes held hers. Not for me. For the designs that deserve to exist beyond your sketchbook. Later that night, Prisha spread the application materials across her apartment floor. The prestigious grant would fund an independent collection and exhibition, a designer's dream. Her fingers hovered over the forms, old fears battling with new possibilities. She thought of Rohan, who had failed repeatedly before succeeding, who understood both where she came from and where she might go. For the first time in years, the prospect of stepping into the light seemed less like exposure and more like emergence. With trembling hands, she began to fill out the application. Shattered spotlight. The Monet Foundation envelope arrived on a brilliant May morning, sunlight streaming through Prisha's apartment windows as if heralding change. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal, unfolding the letter with a mixture of dread and hope. Dear Ms. Mehta, we are pleased to inform you that your portfolio has been selected as one of 5 finalists for this year's Emerging Designer Grant. Prisha, read the words 3 times before they registered. Finalist, not rejection, not dismissal. She was being invited to present her collection concept to the Foundation's board in person. Her first instinct was to call Rohan. Over the past months, their relationship had evolved into something neither had named, but both cherished. A connection built on mutual respect and deepening affection. His unwavering belief in her work had become a quiet cornerstone in her life. When she shared the news, his joy matched her own. This is just the beginning, he said. They'll see what I've seen all along. The following weeks passed in a creative whirlwind. By day, Prisha managed the Waldorf's costume department for their summer production. By night, she refined her presentation for the Monet Foundation. Rohan offered his company's design studio for her use on weekends, a space with resources beyond anything she'd accessed before. Consider it an investment in the future of fashion, he said when she protested the generosity. As the presentation date approached, Rohan suggested they celebrate her hard work with dinner at Lumiere, an exclusive restaurant overlooking the city. Just a few friends who'd love to meet you, he assured her when she hesitated. Prisha agreed, though anxiety fluttered in her stomach. She'd grown comfortable with Rohan alone, but his world, the rarefied air of tech moguls and venture capitalists, remained foreign territory. The evening began pleasantly enough. Rohan introduced her to Vikram and Natasha Singh, college friends who had founded a successful biotech company, and Julian Weiss, a former professor turned business partner. They greeted her warmly, asking thoughtful questions about her work at the Waldorf. Then Daphne Harrison arrived, fashionably late in a designer dress that probably cost more than Prisha's monthly rent. Her air-kiss greeting to Rohan lingered a beat too long. So you're the mysterious theater girl, Daphne said, appraising Prisha over her champagne glass. Rohan's been positively secretive about you. Prisha shifted uncomfortably. I'm the Waldorf's costume designer. How quaint, Daphne replied. My family has supported the arts for generations. Father always says it's important to provide opportunities for local talent. The condescension wasn't subtle. Throughout dinner, Daphne reminisced about private jokes and shared experiences, effectively excluding Prisha from conversations. When the topic turned to an upcoming charity gala, Daphne casually mentioned she'd be Rohan's +1 as usual. Actually, Rohan interjected, I was hoping Prisha would accompany me this year. A momentary silence fell over the table before Julian asked, Will you be helping with the costumes for the evening's entertainment then? No, Rohan answered before Prisha could respond.
She'd be attending as my guest. Daphne's laugh tinkled like breaking glass.
Darling, be serious. The Carlton Gala is hardly the place for... She gestured vaguely toward Prisha. Experimentation. The board members would be utterly confused. Shattered spotlight. The Monet Foundation envelope arrived on a brilliant May morning, sunlight streaming through Prisha's apartment windows as if heralding change. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal, unfolding the letter with a mixture of dread and hope. Dear Ms. Maida, we are pleased to inform you that your portfolio has been selected as one of 5 finalists for this year's Emerging Designer Grant. Prisha, read the words 3 times before they registered. Finalist, not rejection, not dismissal. She was being invited to present her collection concept to the Foundation's board in person. Her first instinct was to call Rohan. Over the past months, their relationship had evolved into something neither had named but both cherished. A connection built on mutual respect and deepening affection. His unwavering belief in her work had become a quiet cornerstone in her life. When she shared the news, his joy matched her own. This is just the beginning, he said. They'll see what I've seen all along. The following weeks passed in a creative whirlwind. By day, Prisha managed the Waldorf's costume department for their summer production. By night, she refined her presentation for the Monet Foundation. Rohan offered his company's design studio for her use on weekends, a space with resources beyond anything she'd accessed before. Consider it an investment in the future of fashion, he said when she protested the generosity. As the presentation date approached, Rohan suggested they celebrate her hard work with dinner at Lumiere, an exclusive restaurant overlooking the city. Just a few friends who'd love to meet you, he assured her when she hesitated. Prisha agreed, though anxiety fluttered in her stomach. She'd grown comfortable with Rohan alone, but his world, the rarefied air of tech moguls and venture capitalists, remained foreign territory. The evening began pleasantly enough. Rohan introduced her to Vikram and Natasha Singh, college friends who had founded a successful biotech company, and Julian Weiss, a former professor turned business partner. They greeted her warmly, asking thoughtful questions about her work at the Waldorf. Then Daphne Harrison arrived, fashionably late in a designer dress that probably cost more than Prisha's monthly rent. Her air-kiss greeting to Rohan lingered a beat too long. So you're the mysterious theater girl, Daphne said, appraising Prisha over her champagne glass. Rohan's been positively secretive about you. Prisha shifted uncomfortably. I'm the Waldorf's costume designer. How quaint, Daphne replied. My family has supported the arts for generations. Father always says it's important to provide opportunities for local talent. The condescension wasn't subtle. Throughout dinner, Daphne reminisced about private jokes and shared experiences, effectively excluding Prisha from conversations. When the topic turned to an upcoming charity gala, Daphne casually mentioned she'd be Rohan's +1 as usual. Actually, Rohan interjected, I was hoping Prisha would accompany me this year. A momentary silence fell over the table before Julian asked, Will you be helping with the costumes for the evening's entertainment then? No, Rohan answered before Prisha could respond. She'd be attending as my guest. Daphne's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Darling, be serious. The Carlton Gala is hardly the place for... She gestured vaguely toward Prisha. Experimentation. The board members would be utterly confused. I'm sure they'd survive meeting someone with actual creative talent, Rohan responded, an edge to his voice, sensing the tension. Vikram quickly changed the subject, but the damage was done. Throughout the remainder of dinner, Prisha felt increasingly out of place. These people moved through a world of private jets and vacation properties, of connections formed in elite universities and executive boardrooms. Their references and assumptions highlighted the gulf between their reality and hers. When Daphne mentioned the foundation that had rejected Prisha years ago, Daddy sits on their board. Of course. Prisha excused herself to the restroom. Standing before the mirror in the opulent bathroom, Prisha confronted her reflection. No matter how talented she might be, no matter how Rohan saw her, to his world she would always be the theater girl, an exotic curiosity from the wrong side of privilege. When she returned, she found the group discussing Rohan's latest acquisition, a struggling tech company he planned to revitalize. Rohan has such a weakness for lost causes, Daphne remarked, her eyes flicking meaningfully toward Prisha. always trying to fix broken things. Is that what she was to him? A project? A broken thing to be fixed? The thought pierced her with unexpected pain. Later, as Rohan drove her home, Prisha remained uncharacteristically silent. "I'm sorry about Daphne," he finally said. "She can be honest?" Prisha supplied. Rohan frowned. "I was going to say insecure. She seemed quite secure in her place in your world." Prisha stared out the window. "As am I in mine. What does that mean?" Prisha turned to face him. "It means I appreciate everything you've done, but tonight made things clear. Our worlds don't intersect naturally, Rohan. You've been slumming in mine, and I was foolish enough to forget that." "That's not fair," he said quietly. "To either of us, isn't it? Your friends see me exactly as I am. Someone who doesn't belong in your circles. Someone who would embarrass you at galas and board meetings. I don't care what they think. But you should," she insisted. "Your position, your company, your influence, they all depend on those connections. I would be a liability. That's absurd, is it? Then why haven't you ever introduced me to your business associates before tonight? Why keep our friendship confined to the theater?" The question hung between them unanswered. When they reached her apartment, Prisha stepped out of the car quickly. "The Monet presentation is next week. After that, I think we should step back to a proper patron-theater relationship." Prisha, "Wait, thank you for dinner," she said formally, and walked away without looking back. Inside her apartment, surrounded by sketches and fabric samples, Prisha fought back tears. She'd allowed herself to dream, to imagine a world where someone like Rohan could see beyond her background to who she truly was. But Daphne's thinly veiled contempt had shattered that illusion. She picked up her Monet Foundation portfolio. Even this opportunity had come through Rohan's influence. Had the selection committee recognized her talent or merely responded to his name? For years she'd hidden in the theater's shadows, protecting herself from judgment and rejection. Stepping into Rohan's spotlight had only confirmed what she'd always feared. That no matter how she tried, she would never truly belong. With methodical precision, Prisha packed away her designs, her dreams, and the foolish hope that had begun to bloom in her heart. Center stage, the Monet Foundation headquarters gleamed in the morning sunlight, its glass facade reflecting Prisha's hesitant approach. She clutched her portfolio case, fighting the urge to turn back. In the week since the disastrous dinner, she'd thrown herself into preparation, refusing to let personal heartbreak derail this professional opportunity. She hadn't spoken to Rohan, ignoring his calls and messages with determined discipline. Each time her phone lit with his name, she reminded herself of Daphne's dismissive glances, of the unbridgeable gap between their worlds. "Ms. Mehta?" A foundation representative greeted her in the lobby. "The board is ready for you." Inside the presentation room, Prisha faced 7 impeccably dressed board members. She recognized several names from fashion magazines and design houses. Their collective attention felt like a physical weight. "Before you begin," said Chairman Wellington, "we'd like to clarify that our decision will be based solely on artistic merit and innovation potential. External recommendations, while appreciated, do not influence our final selections." The implication was clear. They knew about her connection to Rohan and wanted her to understand it carried no weight here. Strangely, the statement steadied her. This would be a judgment of her work alone, exactly as she'd always wanted. Prisha opened her portfolio and began. For 20 minutes, she presented her concept, Shadows and Light, a collection exploring the duality of visibility and invisibility through theatrical techniques applied to contemporary fashion. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger, her passion evident in every gesture and explanation. The board's questions were probing but respectful. When she finished, Chairman Wellington nodded thoughtfully. "Remarkably innovative approach, Ms. Mehta. We'll announce our decision within 2 weeks." Outside, adrenaline drained from Prisha's body, leaving her simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. Whatever the outcome, she had presented her true artistic vision without compromise or apology. Her phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Emergency at theater. Costumes for tonight damaged in sprinkler malfunction. Need you immediately." The crisis provided welcome distraction. For the next 10 hours, Prisha led a frantic restoration effort, salvaging what they could and rebuilding what they couldn't. By curtain time, her team had performed a small miracle, enabling the show to proceed with barely noticeable alterations. As the audience filed in, Prisha caught a glimpse of Rohan entering the theater. Her heart twisted painfully, but she retreated backstage, focusing on last-minute adjustments. After the performance, Thomas found her in the workshop. "Someone's here to see you," he said, uncharacteristically solemn. "I think you should hear him out." Before she could protest, Rohan appeared in the doorway. The past week had left visible marks, shadows under his eyes, tension in his normally relaxed posture. 5 minutes, he requested quietly. "Please." Thomas discreetly disappeared, leaving them alone. "Congratulations on your presentation," Rohan began. "I heard from Wellington it was exceptional." Prisha stiffened.
Did you speak to him about me?
"No. He called to thank me for directing the foundation to your work, but I made it clear the decision should be based solely on merit." He hesitated. "I should have been transparent about that recommendation from the beginning. I'm sorry, the apology was unexpected. It doesn't matter now." "It does." Rohan stepped closer. "But that's not why I'm here. The Carlton Gala is tomorrow night." Prisha shook her head. "I told you—" "Please listen," he interrupted gently. "I've been the foundation's primary benefactor for 3 years. Tomorrow I'm announcing a new initiative, a design incubator program for artists from non-traditional backgrounds." "That's admirable," she said, carefully. "The announcement includes an exhibition of work that inspired the program." He held her gaze. "Your work, Prisha. With your permission." She stared at him in confusion. "Why would you do that?" "Because your designs deserve to be seen. Because talent shouldn't be measured by pedigree or connections." His voice softened. "And because I've spent a week realizing that a life where I don't get to witness your brilliance isn't one I want to live." Emotion threatened to overwhelm her carefully constructed defenses. "Your friends made it very clear where I belong, Rohan. They're not all my friends, and those who can't see your worth aren't people I need in my life." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I've spent years in rooms with people like Daphne, privileged, entitled, incapable of recognizing true innovation. Meeting you reminded me why I started my company in the first place. To create something meaningful, not just profitable." Prisha absorbed his words, wanting to believe them. "I don't want to fix you or change you," he continued. "I just want the chance to see what happens when you stop hiding your light." He placed an envelope on her workbench. "Your invitation to tomorrow's gala. As my guest, my equal, or not at all. The choice is yours." After he left, Prisha sat motionless, the envelope untouched before her. For years, she'd defined herself by others' judgments, retreating to shadows where rejection couldn't reach her. The pattern was familiar, comfortable in its limitations. But something had shifted during her Monet presentation. Standing before those industry titans, she'd felt not fear but certainty. In her vision, her voice, her value. The next evening, the Carlton Hotel ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of Manhattan's elite. Guests in designer evening wear clustered in conversation groups, their combined net worth rivaling small nations. At precisely 8 o'clock, Prisha Mehta entered the ballroom. She wore her own creation, a midnight blue gown with architectural elements that caught and reflected light from unexpected angles. The design was unmistakably hers, innovative, theatrical, impossible to ignore. She had stepped out of the shadows and brought them with her, transformed into something beautiful. Conversations paused as she passed. She recognized several faces from the disastrous dinner, including Daphne, whose expression shifted from dismissal to reluctant admiration as she registered Prisha's gown. Rohan stood near the stage, deep in conversation with Chairman Wellington. When he turned and saw her, his face transformed with a joy so genuine it silenced her remaining doubts. "You came," he said simply when she reached him. "I decided it was time to step into the light," she replied. "On my own terms." Wellington studied her with new interest. "That design is remarkable, Ms. Mehta. Is it from the collection you presented?" "A preview," she confirmed. "Though I'm still awaiting your decision." After seeing this, he smiled. "Let's just say the announcement might come sooner than expected." As Wellington excused himself, Rohan took her hand. "Are you ready for this? Once I make the announcement, there's no going back to the shadows." Prisha thought of her years hiding backstage, of costumes created for others to wear while she remained invisible. She thought of the theater where she'd found sanctuary but also limitation. And she thought of Rohan, who had seen her value before she'd been willing to claim it. I've been ready for years, she realized. I just needed to believe it myself. When Rohan took the stage moments later, he spoke not of charity or patronage but of recognizing overlooked talent, of creating pathways for voices historically silenced by systemic barriers. As images of Prisha's designs appeared on the massive screens behind him, murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. The artist who created these revolutionary pieces is here tonight, Rohan announced. Someone whose journey reminds us that brilliance often exists in unexpected places, waiting only for the opportunity to shine. He extended his hand toward her, an invitation rather than an instruction. Taking a deep breath, Prisha stepped forward. As she walked toward the stage, she felt the weight of old fears falling away. The spotlight no longer threatened exposure. It offered illumination. Standing beside Rohan, facing the assembled elite of the art and business worlds, Prisha spoke about her vision, her journey, and the collection that would now become reality. Her voice, clear and confident, carried throughout the ballroom. Later that evening, as they stood on the hotel's terrace overlooking the city lights, Rohan asked, "Do you regret it? Stepping out of the shadows?" Prisha considered the question carefully. The shadows taught me patience, observation, craftsmanship. I needed that time. She turned to face him. But I think I've outgrown hiding. The world is better for it, he said. What about you? She asked. Will you regret aligning yourself with someone from such a different world? Rohan laughed softly. Prisha, don't you understand yet? We're not from different worlds, we're from the same one. Both outsiders who had to prove ourselves. Both creators who want to build something meaningful. His hand found hers. The only difference is I stopped hiding sooner. 3 months later, as Prisha's first collection debuted to critical acclaim, she still spent hours in the Waldorf's workshop, creating costumes for productions she now helped select as a board member. The theater had become a creative partner rather than a hiding place, one facet of her expanding artistic life. And if Manhattan's elite were initially skeptical of Rohan Kapoor's relationship with the former backstage girl, they quickly learned what he had known from the beginning, that true brilliance requires no pedigree, and that some lights, once allowed to shine, are impossible to dim. In a private moment before her exhibition opening, Prisha stood alone before her collection. Each piece contained elements of her journey, threads of shadow and light woven together, neither diminishing the other but creating something stronger in their combination. Ready? Rohan asked, appearing beside her. Prisha nodded, taking his hand. Together they walked toward the waiting crowd, no longer divided by shadows or spotlight, but united in the space they had created between both worlds.